Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 62 of Podcast vs. Enemies, a Destiny Massive Breakdown show. My name is Saint Kabr, and as always, I am joined by my fellow hosts, Cout and Impetus. We are closing in on the end of Season 20, and the news for Season 21 is really starting to roll in. We got a ton to cover this week, so without further ado, let's get into it. Cout, who do we have to thank before we get started?
Hello, lads. Nice to see you again. Yeah, we don't have any new we don't have any patrons to shout out this time, but we do have our amazing sponsors that keep the lights running. So a quick shout out to the following: Modern Viking, Askian Monk, Binary Wolf, Black Hammer Tech, Bryce Aroni, Deacon, Moonlight, Shazo, Sylv, This Moment, and Zenzo Cal. Thank you very much for your support. Reminder, you can send us all kinds of feedback directly to any of our socials or via the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord server. Positive, critical, and constructive feedback helps with the trajectory of the podcast and how we present and break down builds, activities, and much more in the PvE sandbox for both the established Destiny player and new lights. So if you've got any feedback, comments, don't hesitate to reach out. We're all happy to talk about Destiny. We do use Chartable to aggregate our podcast reviews, which we don't have any for this week, but this may take some time for non-US listeners' reviews to appear. Alternatively, you can also send your review to any of our socials. We also want to extend a special thanks and appreciation to everyone that supports PvE, whether that is downloading and listening to our show, discussing it in the Discord server, or supporting us via Patreon. Speaking of Patreon, if you'd like to support the show, please visit DestinyMassiveBreakdowns.com and click on the link to Patreon. You'll get access to members-only channels in Discord, behind-the-scenes information, input on the future of the show, plus access to our legendary and annual merch drop. You can also check out our sibling podcast, that is Destiny Massive Breakdowns, which dives into the nitty-gritty PvP sandbox with Ill Physics and Lego LaFlash, and Beneath Twin Suns, the Star Wars podcast that explains it all with Mercules and Kit Kutcha. All right, Impetus, what are we talking about this week?
Hello, Court. Hello, Saint Kabr. Yeah, we are talking about some hefty articles that dropped this past week. We have the Mammoth 5.4 TWAB and the highlights from that for PvE, and then the Season 21 Abilities Sandbox change that dropped on Wednesday. Lots to talk about in that for our side of Destiny. And then we'll round things out with the Glassway Grandmaster Nightfall. We've touched on this previously a few times, what to recommend, what to run, what to look out for, so we won't be spending too much time on that, but we do want to give an updated guide on the builds that we run, the weapons we use, and some tips and tricks to get you through the Europa Nightmare. So, without further ado, let's get into what we did in and out of Destiny 2 last week. I'll start things off here. Guardian Games is out here, and we've got our new title for that called Champ. So I've been working on a few of those special challenges so I can become a little champitus, if you will. Did a Master Root of Nightmares challenge for the Adept Nessa's Ablation Shotgun. That's the last of the 6 Root of Nightmares Adept weapons that are available on the Master difficulty. So I've got that one. I'm still missing Caraxes from when Nezarec was available, so I'll circle back around to that next season when it's available. And then hopped back into the Vault of Glass on Master difficulty, as that was the featured raid this week, to knock out all of the challenges for a patron of ours, No D. Did it in 99 minutes with one of the most shambolic squads imaginable. I had a blast going in there. It's been well over a year since I did definitely Master Vault of Glass, so it was kind of a trip down memory lane going back in there. We've had a lot of sandbox changes since the last time I went in there, so things play out very differently. We're a lot stronger than we were when that first debuted, so that was a nice trip down memory lane. Court, how about yourself?
Yes, I was part of that shambolic run, and oh boy. Honestly, it was such a blast. So shout out to obviously Impetus and I, but Phaeton, JK, Noah, and Bryce there. Really just good vibes all around. Lots of shouting and yelling, but in a good way. Nothing. We weren't at each other's throats. Well, at least.
Well.
No, honestly, it was just such a great run, and much a much larger improvement to my previous Master Vogue run, which, won't go into too much detail, but lots of fun. I was also part of the Master Ron Challenge to get Adept Nessas, and outside of that, really just playing a little bit of Guardian games, just ranking up the champ title, and just closing out any kind of loose ends for this season. Saint, what have you been up to?
I was just going to say that, hour 40 is honestly not bad for every single master challenge. That's cooking, that's a lot of, it's just a lot for some people to shoot very specific oracles and very specific sequences at Atheon. I just went through some tough times there. So, it's pretty good. I did a little Master Vogue as well. I did some oracles farming with my boy Pigeon for some Adept sniper rifle rolls, or time loss, I should say. Mossy put out a clip a while back that basically showcased the fact that how good old We Mind Wounds works on that weapon is if you have a mag of 6 or higher, it is always refunding your last 2 bullets back into the mag, because it rounds up to like 1.2 bullets for a third of the magazine, or the refunding that part of the magazine. So I don't know, it's pretty fun. Again, like you said, a long time since I've been doing any kind of Master Vogue there. Strand does make that pretty nice. I use Strand, use Void, also just both. You just throw Suspend Grenade, and all those little goblins that are rushing you are just kind of dealt with real quick, and I can focus on my oracles. Kind of showcase Strand there. Also, funnily crafted my Nessus Ablation and Rufus's Fury, which is great. Really enjoyed leveling that up. Really having a difficult time to decide what's going to go on Rufus. Honestly, it's such an absolutely juiced weapon in both columns 3 and 4. So I'm going to be experimenting with that. Guardian games. Been doing Titan things in the Guardian Games playlist, getting some hate mail for the Antaeus Wards build, but I get it. I know what I am, and I'm okay with what I am. So no harm, no foul there. At one point, somebody just whispered me a frowning face, and I think that was like probably my favorite. It's not even hate mail. This guy is just, I'm sure, come up against this a ton this week, and it's just like sad. But that was really funny. That one got me laughing pretty good. Other than that, just chopping away on C# courses, which feels good. Feel like I have some momentum there, which feels nice. The TWAB, man, it's certainly a TWAB. We have we got insights on our new aspects. We have a little preview of the season of the Deep. We got roaming super changes, just a ton of stuff. We'll just jump right in real quick with our new, our kind of first look at Season of the Deep, and we weren't the only ones looking in this preview. We got some big old eyes peering back through the window there. We got the massive Leviathan seeming creature on Titan is somehow involved in this season. We got Sloane with her arm that looks like it's been taken, and we're just like 2 weeks away, honestly, from this new season. So not really sure I understand exactly what's happening. Also not super into being deep underwater with a giant sea monster, but like, hey, just gonna ride the wave, for lack of a better metaphor there. Court and Impetus, how are you guys feeling about going back to Titan?
Looks good. I'm certainly anticipating a lot of water with this particular kind of marketing image. Giant kraken-like creature. And yeah, I will say the armor for all 3 classes, not that we could get like a very close look, and with this also being kind of amped up with it being a marketing piece for the next season, looks pretty juicy. Commander Sloane just got a little bit of taken on our right arm, so very, very interesting to see where this is going. obviously we haven't really spoke about the narrative link between last season to this season, and then progressing forward towards final shape. But we'll see where this goes. Impetus?
Yeah, very excited to see where things go. The arcology on Titan is probably my favorite Destiny 2 environment. Really, really dug kind of being in a super futuristic space with a lot of flora, exotic flora, and I was always disappointed that the destination itself spent a lot of time outside of the arcology on the floating docks rather than inside. So, if this is kind of a similar situation to the Leviathan coming back during Season of the Haunted, I imagine it'll probably take place outside the arcology, but part of me is hoping that maybe we get to spend all our time inside the arcology. That would be great. Wonderful. Also, we're getting a new dungeon next season, if that will also take place on Titan, similarly to Duality did on the Leviathan, or if they'll maybe have it take place somewhere else. It's never quite clear if the dungeon will tie in to the narrative or not, but yeah, very excited. Armor looks gorgeous. I can't wait to get my hands on that, and Sloane's alive. Let's find out what's been going on, because it's been a minute since we checked in with her. So, all right, do we want to take a look at our new Strand Aspects? We were told, actually, a few weeks ago that we would be getting the details on these. They're not leaving it up for us to find out, as they kind of did with Stasis in the past. So we've gotten a name and a description for each of the 3 aspects. Court, I'll pass it off to you to start with what the Hunters are getting next season.
Yeah, so we are getting Threaded Spectre. So when you activate your class ability, so dodge, maybe even the dive, remain to be seen, you will leave behind a decoy. Now this decoy draws attention of nearby combatants, and after taking significant damage, or when combatants approach it, the decoy explodes, deals damage, and releases 2 threadlings. So pretty interesting. Some kind of threadling action, which hunters don't have. Well, they have to spec into fragments in order to do that. So the synergies that I was looking at for pairing this with kind of exotic armor or kind of other kind of means, will the Silk Strike, dodge, and dive also spawn this decoy? So when you're in your Silk Strike super, you effectively have unlimited dodge and dive. Maybe. I'm probably going to say no, but it would be interesting just spawning all these decoys around a bunch of ads and watching the threadlings start to spawn and wreak havoc. Leads me on to the ensnaring slam dive, which is what I kind of alluded to at the start. Will the Threaded Spectre actually proc on that? So when you do your dive, let's say you dive into a bunch of ads, and then the Threaded Spectre decoy, pair it with Evolution for increased damage threadlings. Will that synergize? Again, remains to be seen. The dive, the ensnaring slam dive does take up your class ability, but at the time of recording anyway, this season, it's not properly working with a bunch of armor mods, but Bungie have acknowledged that that is not intended. You're supposed to, the dive aspect is supposed to work with those kind of things like Reaper, stuff like that. I noticed this, Radiant Dance Machines, again, very similar to Silk Strike, Dodge, Dive. Will this also spawn multiple decoys? I'm thinking from a PvP point of view, probably not. But again, I would love to see that. Just spawning a bunch of decoys and watching the threadlings, becoming a pseudo warlock with the amount of threadlings that you're spawning. And then Bombardiers, which has the Strand does have a synergy with the bomb. It does cause sever, which is actually not well utilized. It's one of the kind of more rarer kind of effects on the Strand subclass. I'm just looking at, so we've got Tangos, we've got Threadlings, we've got Woven Mail, Sever, Suspend, and Unravel, and it's really Sever, which isn't really used a bunch outside of kind of Warlocks and Titans kind of producing it through their melees and various aspects. But Not sure if I would pair it with Bombardiers. I sincerely hope Radiant Dance Machines can spawn multiple decoys, but again, from a PvP sandbox, probably not going to happen, but I will be surprised if it does. At least for the first couple of days before it gets disabled.
Okay, buddy, come on.
But yeah, looks pretty
that
good.
never happens. Okay?
Yeah, I mean,
That
Never happens
happens.
for hunters.
Stop being a fatalist. Come on now.
But no, I'm looking forward to it. Another way to get threadlings. Threadlings, at least in kind of lower end content and middling content, it can be, those can do some work. And I think Warlocks will still have the upper hand when it comes to threadlings because it is their little kind of mini game. But yeah, more ways to get more strand verbs. Looking forward to it. What are the Titans looking forward to, Saint?
We have Fletched Storm. Slide melee to launch into the air, knocking nearby targets away, dealing damage. While in the air, activate charge melee again to launch a cluster of damaging ranged projectiles that also unravel on hit. Repeatedly activating melee will chain additional throws. So, kind of like Consecration vibes off of this one, but Strand. And the way that it describes repeatedly activating melee will chain additional throws. So am I just going to like throw everything backwards and then just start like ninja starring out some like unravel projectiles? I'm like having a hard time like imagining this animation. But it does sound cool. Again, kind of like Court said, unravel is not like a super just common like utility and can be like pretty useful depending on like the targets that you're attacking or attaching this unravel to. They can kind of like chain some of the little damage that's around them. I'm not really sure like how this fits into the Titans kit, because like the Titan kit that I have just like stuck with and used in like so much in-game and like GM content this season is just like suspend central with the Bant Leaves that gives you woven mail whenever you suspend a target. And this doesn't really have anything that plays into suspend, but that's like fine. It can be its own thing with Abeyant Leaves having like their focus being suspend, and that's the way that you want to hone in on that. But I don't really see how this fits into kind of my larger kit, like, or I guess I should say, how I'm going to fit this into my larger Titan kit with like this suspend focus build. Like, if I am on a Bant Leap, am I going to like want to swap this out for reference, into the fray, throwing a tangle or casting your super grants woven mail for nearby enemies. While you have woven mail, your melee generation is increased, or your melee, ability generation is increased. And then Drinker's Lash, right? Activating your class ability creates a ripple, which travels forward on the ground, suspending targets, which is what, the Bant Leap capitalizes on. So like maybe you could capital or swap this out for Into the Fray, because you don't like super need Into the Fray for that build. But I'm not really sure. My mind also goes to like melee exotics, Synthoceps, Burning Fists, Dune Marchers, what have you. It could definitely be fun. And I will say, even though Consecration did not initially have like a super strong place in some of the solar builds, using like Path of the Burning Steps and then like chaining ignitions and things like that is a solar build that I still use all the time, just because it is like so incredibly satisfying to use Consecration up until you're kind of like middling content, even if the suspend build remains the dominant build for like GMs, master raids, all kinds of stuff like that. If this feels as good as Consecration does, I'm fine. Not every, aspect is going to be meta, and like, that's all right. They can be cool and they don't have to be meta. But we'll see. I'm interested to see what I'm throwing and if it looks like Ninja Stars and exactly how that whole animation plays out.
Well, considering you do have 3 melees, so you'll be doing more Consecrations, but Strand more often, because as we'll talk about later on, you and the Warlocks are getting a reduction in the cooldown if you have more melees active. So, yeah. I will say, shout out to Consecration. I also love Consecration, and even some of the kind of upper content, I do tend to use Consecration just to get those ignitions off.
Yeah, if you build into that ignition focused like fragment build, it's kind of nuts how many enemies you can kill with one of those melees. All right, Mr. Warlock, Impetus, how you feeling about the Wanderer?
This is a really cool one. I had no idea what this was going to end up as based on the name, but the Wanderer is tangles you throw, now attached to enemies and detonate into a suspending blast. Also, threadling final blows now create a tangle. Really excited about this one. Suspend is definitely the verb to be on the lookout for, to interact with for endgame PvE. It is incredibly strong, probably the strongest single verb that we have in our toolkit for our current meta. So very excited that the Warlocks now get access to that specific verb through Tangles, which is a pretty easy way to get access to that, all things considered. So very excited about that. We still do have a little bit of a threadling related way. They did manage to sneak that in there. So we've got 3 threadling based aspects now. I'm hoping that our fourth and final one, potentially final one, is not threadling based, because I'm starting to get a little sick and tired, but we'll take it. I'm not complaining right now. We do have a cool ability loop here with the Swarmer's Exotic. So destroying a tangle creates threadlings, and then now with this aspect, threadling kills will generate a tangle. So we can pair that with the Thread of Continuity for increased duration to unravel and suspend effects as well. Keep that cycle going. Also, Quicksilver Storm, the Strand Exotic Auto Rifle, the grenade kills for that create tangles as well. So I think there will be an increased reason for Warlocks, the Broodweavers, to be running that next season. So very, very excited for those synergies. There is, of course, still the cooldown to Tangle Generation. That will probably be the biggest hang-up here. Plus, differentiating between you and your allies' tangles. Is there a color-based differentiation for ally ones? I know that enemy tangles created have a little bit of a red tint to them, but have you guys noticed, is there anything other than shooting them to any way to distinguish between one that your allies have created? Because I feel like that's probably my biggest hang up with anything related to tangles right now, is you have to shoot them to figure out which one's your allies and which one's yours, because yours will pop pretty much immediately, whereas your allies will take a little bit of time. But I didn't know if there was a color, some other thing that I should look for to know what's my tangle and what is, say, a Titan's tangle that I definitely don't want to shoot because I want woven mail.
That would be a good accessibility, to have a different color for your own allied and enemy. But I don't think that's it. Enemy definitely, but for allied tangles, I think that's a no. It's just a case of shooting. See if it's if you one shot it, then yeah, it was yours.
Yeah,
can't pick it up now. But if it's friendly, then you're gonna spend a mag or two to destroy it. That would be a good kind of quality of life change. Because I think that's a good point to raise, because I've picked up my allied tangles when they were wanting to use it, and vice versa.
We're just on a strictly honor system right now, okay? Just like gentleman's agreement. You don't pick up my tangles, I don't shoot yours. Like, everybody's cool, War Mind Cell
It's
style.
funny you say that, because I typically will leave tangles if I'm running with a Strand Titan, because getting woven mail is like, that trumps pretty much everything. But now that my tangles can create suspend, I feel like I'm going to be at a bit of a crossroads here if I'm teamed up with a Strand Titan. Like, well, do I want the woven mail, or do I want to suspend? Do I want to choose which enemy I want to suspend, which I think is going to be a real dilemma. So I'm very excited for that, as long as I'm the only person on Strand in my fire team. But yeah, this is going to be really cool,
because it says tangles you throw, right?
Right.
I feel like that's a super big distinction to make versus the Titan wording, right? Your tangles you create, right, versus tangles you throw is. I think that's cool. I like that.
All right, moving on to, this is something that we've been told before, but they're reiterating it. We are not having an increase to our power level in Season 21, so the power floor is going to remain 1600. The soft cap will remain 1750. The powerful cap will remain 1800. And the pinnacle cap will remain 1810. That is not going to change at the start, nor over the course of Season 21. and that does mean that Legend, Master, and Grandmaster difficulty levels will not change and will remain the same as they currently are in this season, Season 20. That also means that if you hit the Pinnacle Cap during this season, you will remain at the Pinnacle Cap starting and throughout next season, Season 21. So hold on to any of your Pinnacle drops that you have this season, because again, we're going to have presumably new surges next season. That'll be different abilities. So if you want to start working on leveling up some exotics for different abilities, just so you're ready for Season 21, I think that'd be a very smart idea. But yeah, don't discard your 1810 drops just yet in case you want to bring some new stuff right up to the forefront for the start of next season.
Yeah,
Court, what is happening? Oh, sorry, go ahead, sir.
I was going to say a good thing to highlight here is that we're obviously getting a new dungeon next season. So if you've been doing a lot of Grandmaster or Master content last couple of weeks of this season, you'll be able to go into the new dungeon and not really have to worry about the kind of power cap. A little break from power leveling is much needed from my point of view. Yes, exotic armor focusing and decryption. Again, we've talked about this before, but they've gave us a little bit more information in terms of like the costs and what exactly to expect. So I'll kick us off with the standard decryption. So it's just basically you decrypt it. There's no specific type of focusing, so this will allow players to decrypt engrams for free. There's no cost attached to it other than just having an exotic engram, and you'll receive random drops from the standard exotic engram loot pools at no additional cost. Over to the focusing tier 1. So you'll focus an engram to receive a random roll of an exotic from the associated expansion. Just as a reminder, you will require ownership of the associated expansion as well as having previously acquired all armor pieces within the engram for your class. So this includes Red War, exotic helms is 1, exotic arms is 2, exotic chests is 3, exotic legs is 4. Then we've got Forsaken, we've got Shadowkeep, we've got Beyond Light, and the Witch Queen and Lightfall will be coming in a future. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4 of which are all split into Red War associated exotics. This will cost 1 exotic engram, 30,000 glimmer, and 1 ascendant shard. We've got tier 2. This is the more kind of focused one. This is where you really want to get a specific piece of armor. Again, does require ownership of the associated expansions as well as previously acquired that piece of armor. This will be a much higher cost. 1 exotic engram, 60,000 glimmer, 3 ascendant shards, and 1 exotic cipher. As a reminder, we won't have too many exotic cipher sources. A couple of weeks ago, they talked about what we'll have up to 5 or 6, I think it is.
It's 5. They're increasing the cap up to 5.
Yeah. So hopefully, as they've mentioned here, the stat rolls will be generous, but yeah, Bungie did say that they've took a pass at the exotic armor stat packages, so your exotic should roll consistently higher stats, and with more frequent individual stat spikes starting next season. You can expect the average stats to be in the mid-60s. And finally, we've got Pinnacle Legendaries and Focusable exotic engrams. So since the Pinnacle cap isn't being raised, the need for Pinnacle Legendaries has diminished. They're changing the rewards for the basic complete activities challenges to now be a focusable, powerful exotic engram. This gives most players 3 to 9 free, achievable and deterministic weekly exotic engrams ready for focusing. And the other sources for focusable exotic engrams are random world drops, season pass paid and free tracks, which are 3 paid per season and 2 free per season. So if you've got the season pass, that's 8 total. And the vendor reputation tracks, 1 each reset after the first one, and we'll have additional focusable exotic engram sources in future seasons. lot to take in there. What are our vibes here? I think a lot of this doesn't really apply. I think this is for more, newer audience. If you've got a lot of Senate shards you want to burn, and you've got a lot of exotics still to collect, but we've got any vibes, feelings for these kind of focusing?
About to be going glimmer broke. Man, if I'm focusing engrams, I'm just cashing out the bank. 60K for a tier 2 and 30K for a tier 1 is nutty. But I mean, people have been asking for a long time of like, man, sometimes I get real tired of like farming the, exotic chess piece, like, from this lost sector, and I've done chess piece lost sectors every day it's come around for the past like 4 times in a row, and I still can't get the piece I'm looking for. And I think that's kind of to the point of like, man, you've tried farming the lost sector, you got some pretty good pieces, you really can't land what you want, just like bite the bullet, go spend a tier 2 engram, 60k glimmer, 3 shards, 1 exotic engram, and that's fine. I get it's expensive. They don't want to just be giving it away, because like it seems like exotic engrams themselves are just going to be just falling from the sky. 3 to 9, depending on how many characters you're running a week, is like a lot of exotic engrams. IMO. I
was pretty harsh on this when we first found out about it. I thought that it was way too expensive for the amount of RNG that goes into exotic, well, really all armor rolls to begin with. But especially the exotic armor rolls. I've come around to it a little bit. I've been thinking about, what kind of counts as the end game, especially in terms of the economy, and it's probably getting to the point where I would define it as you're definitely an in-game player for PvP or PvE when you are able to start masterworking definitely exotic armor, but also, legendary armor when you just have the materials available for that stuff. And kind of thinking about how they're changing the drop sources, especially for the exotic engrams. For me, I think it'll still be the exotic cipher and the ascendant shards. I know that is still going to be a very rare commodity when you look at kind of the total player base for the game of who's got those materials to spend on this. And again, we'll be doing this focusing at Master Rahul. That's where the exotic focusing will take place here. But I think if you can get to the point where you can take advantage of this, again, if the average stats truly are going to be in the mid-60s with more frequent individual stat spikes, then I do think it will be a worthwhile resource. I just, I'm looking at my vault. I'm in a position now where there's maybe 3 exotics across all 3 of my subclasses where I'd probably want to get a better roll specifically. So, maybe I'll take advantage of it. It will depend. It'll probably be the Glimmer that's holding me back. I'm good on the ciphers and the Ascendant shards. I'm never good on Glimmer. So, yeah, I'll see if I can take advantage of this system next season just to try it out. I will also say that if you can get up to power level, we've kind of most recently we've had a bot that's been created for Discord servers that lets you know when the Vex Incursion Zone is dropping on Neomuna, and that is a guaranteed exotic. That can't be a new exotic. So what I've been saying in the D&B Discord is I'm probably going to squad up with a group of people who go sit on Neomuna, wait for that bot to ping in a Vex Incursion Zone, and go get the new Warlock exotic armor for next season, like on day 1, right? Don't even need to wait for the Lost Sector to be whatever the new armor specifically is, and then if it happens that 2 of the subclasses have, or 2 of the classes have arms, if it's an arms day, I can just go farm that out immediately on my other class and, don't have to wait about that stuff. So very, very excited with that change as well. That'll be nice. I can immediately unlock that new armor. And if the roll isn't great, well, then I can start saving up to go focus for that armor. Oh, wait, no, it's not going to include Lightfall. Oh, so we won't be able to get the new armor this way.
Do you think they're going to put that on like a season or 2 delay or something? Like, how long, or do you think they're going to go like the entire year and then turn around and like add the focusers?
I don't want to assume that, but yeah. The point is, it won't be available. If the first drop isn't great, then I will have to wait for a lost sector to just go farm again. If it's arms, just all the arms. But yeah, that's a bummer because I think I'm at a point again, a very privileged point where it's just the new armor that I really want to prioritize at the start of every season because I've got good rolls for everything else. For newer players or players who don't have everything fully, if they haven't gotten lucky enough with their armor RNG, then yeah, I think this service will be of greater use. But yeah. Still good changes though. I'm a little bit more positive. It's expensive, but I can understand why it's expensive. And if it becomes cheaper, then I think I'll be very positive about the system.
Yeah, I have softened my kind of POV for this exotic focusing. It's probably still something I'm not going to spend a lot of time with. I still think you're still at the whim of RNG where, you're getting your mid-60s exotic armor, but it's dropping at something that you don't want. It's dropping at strength, or it's dropping at mobility when you're on a Titan. It's just like this is great, but can I have something to re-roll this exotic that I just got? I keep bringing this up, but glass needles were a really welcome change in Destiny 1, where you could spend a lot of resources re-rolling, but at least I could just re-roll that specific piece of armor. So if this system eventually evolves into giving like glass needles or a way to re-roll your exotic armor, then yeah, I'll be a lot more kind of friendly and engaged with this system. But again,
would you pay these prices for glass needles?
For glass needles, probably, yeah, because at least like next season, yeah, we don't have access to the new exotic armor that are releasing for that season, but we do have an opportunity to focus for last year's exotic armor, which there's quite a few bangers there. But again, I'm still at the whim of if I do tier 1, it's going to be completely random what I'll get from that specific piece of art focusing, or I could do tier 2. But again, it just keeps re-rolling into giving me recovery. But yeah, a lot more friendly to the system. But I'm hopeful for future changes that this kind of gets expanded and kind of gets that kind of similar Destiny 1 approach.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's jump into deepsight activation and crafting changes coming up in Season 21. This is something they talked about a long time ago, and now we're finally getting some details on it. And I have some mixed feelings about this. So I'm just going to read through this real quick, and I'll let you guys start off before I kind of taint the view here. Season 21 is introducing deep sight activation, the ability to apply deep sight onto weapons that can be crafted. This capability will be accessible through a new mod slot on the weapon details screen, and to perform a deep sight activation on a weapon, you need a deep sight harmonizer, which is a new form of currency. Deep sight harmonizers currency can be obtained from the season pass rank rewards. You get 3 free and 3 on the paid track, so 6 total if you're somebody that owns season pass for season 21 and going on forward. Currently, this will be the only source for the currency. Only one harmonizer can be stored in the inventory at any given time, aka they do not stack. The cost for this on non-raid weapons is just 1 harmonizer. If it's a raid weapon, it will cost a harmonizer plus 15 spoils. And they make a few details here about how exactly and what weapons you can do this to. Weapons that have already... A weapon that has already had its pattern unlocked, you cannot apply the deep sight to. Weapons that previously had deep sight, like you got a random drop from the raid that had deep sight on it, you can't pull that off and then put deep sight back onto it, repeating over and over again. So you can't just use all 5 of these on a single raid weapon to unlock it. And then weapons from vendors, weapons purchased from raid vendors will not be compatible, I think is what they're trying to say here. But weapons purchased from Xur and the gunsmith will support deep sight activation. So if you were getting like bump in the night rolls the other week, or you got an Ikilos SMG from the gunsmith, whatever the case may be, those will work. Crafting costs, this is like a much less, this is not quite as a big of a change. Legendary shard costs removed from crafting most weapons. Glimmer and enhancement core costs will remain untouched. Enhanced weapon costs will now be based on the weapon's masterwork costs, and thus will still require legendary shards, as they're not going to change the whole weapon masterwork economy season 21. Okay. Deepsight harmonizer currency. Court, Impetus, thoughts, feelings, opinions here?
Much like the exotic focusing, this is probably not a system I'm going to engage with. Kill surprise. To be honest, I would understand these costs if they just applied to weapons that are from the perspective of Season 21. Season 21 and Season 20's weapons. But this also applies to weapons that came out last year. Now, if you've got the associated expansion, so last year, if you've got Witch Queen, then you can play around with those weapons from Season 16 through to Season 19. But because it shares the same cost here to apply a deep sight, a new player will probably take... I don't know, how long will it take a new player to get what is a very good rocket launcher, Bump in the Night, or a very good SMG, which is the Icolos SMG. That's my main problem. We all have the weapons crafted, I think, from last year. So we're kind of, we're sat on our in our ivory tower, kind of looking down. But I would want to share the wealth. I want folks who never had a chance to get Bump in the Night or the Icolos SMG or all the Season 16 weapons. They're all bangers, but it's going to take how long for them to craft just a set of them? That's my problem when it comes to this system. I think the cost isn't as egregious when it applies to the current season, so Season 21, but man, only being able to get 6 total, so you can craft one. If you want to just craft one weapon, you'll have one harmonizer spare for future for in the season anyway for future crafting. Just feeling a bit mixed. Impetus, I think I know your vibe.
This is shit, dog. This is garbage.
Okay, I was taking the diplomatic route.
6 total, and it's all from the season pass? Are you kidding me? Come on, guys. That is so unfair to new players. I mean, this is bad. This is so mean.
Yep.
I thought this was the whole point of this system was to be kind to players that weren't there for Witch Queen. They're new players coming in the Lightfall. We're making all of these changes to playlists and other economy changes to get them up to. We're not increasing the power level for next season. I thought this was the overall vibe, and they were going to come out with this. Hey, I'm sorry. You have to get to probably level 80 on the season pass to get 5 total deep sight harmonizers. You have to spend them all on one weapon, which you're probably not going to be able to get unless Banshee or Xur sells, for example, the Icolos SMG week after week after week after week after week, so that you can spend your harmonizer on that one weapon, and then you're only going to have one left over. Guys, come on. Why does it have to be this hard? You're already making players go out of their way to prioritize which weapons they want to craft, as opposed to rely on the chance of getting a random roll. And then you're going to deprive them of the one piece of currency that lets them actually get a red border. And if that just so happens to be a raid weapon, then you're also... I mean, the Spoils of Conquest... I just need to buckle up and farm for Spoils of Conquest at this point, because I'm always running out of those, and we're getting more and more reprised raids with craftable weapons. So that's on me. That's fine. I'll go get that currency, but come on, man. The weapons purchased from raid vendors don't even count for this. That's just brutal. So now I got to get lucky with my with my drop when I'm doing the actual raid, and I probably have to do a full raid, right? Can't just do a checkpoint at the boss. Yeah, this is brutal. I think this is just going to really deter players from even engaging with the system. So I'm sure they'll make it more forgiving either mid-season or at the end of season 21. But yeah, this one I'm definitely not engaging with until they make some changes, because this is brutal.
Before I pass it over to Saint here, I will say this still doesn't solve the fundamental problem of how do you get season 16 through season 19 weapons? Like there's no direct way. I'm not saying, oh, here's a vendor that's got all the previous weapons, but there should be somewhere where you can farm, whether that's, I don't know, some 6-man activity or something like that. Dares, I guess, maybe, like refit the loot pool for that. I suppose it's a free-to-play piece of content. So yeah, it's just all these kind of cross wires of, can you purchase weapons from season 16 and craft them if you never actually bought Witch Queen? Can you farm for them in a specific place? No. It's just that's my biggest problem. Like, they could make this as cheap as they could, but it still doesn't solve the problem that I have, is where do you even get these weapons? Like, where do they drop outside of Sir or the Gunsmith? Or sometimes the world loot drop. Yeah, it's not it, Chief.
Yeah,
I was being pretty diplomatic. But,
no, it's not.
The biggest miss here for me is that you cannot. You're being capped on your ability to earn the currency is just like a total miss, right? I understand if they want to make it like, difficult. And it's not like quite as free, or like if you would have to invest a lot of time to like get this done. But like, why not at least make it uncapped? Because to Court's point, some of these weapons are so hard to get in the first place that like asking somebody to get 5 of them is huge. Maybe they need 4 or 3, and like that's fine. But unless you're just trying to like round off a couple patterns that you didn't quite complete during the season, this system is really a drag. Add our old seasonal weapons into the Dares loot pool, have them rotate, week by week, with a few additional like world loot drops in there as well each week. They should have an uncapped version of this currency that, even if you want people to like really grind, let's say you could earn one, just like, this is just like hypothetical. Let's say you could earn one every 10 season pass ranks, 5 for paid and 5 for free. And then you could also earn one every 10 season pass ranks that you went past 100 every season. So if you want to fully craft 3 weapons that season, you could get to rank, 150 on the season pass, which, is like, you're kind of grinding. But man, at least if I haven't played the game in a while and I'm coming back to like grind it out, I have a pathway to like continually access this material. You want to go all the way to season rank like 200? Great. That's, 4 weapons for you that you can completely craft if you can get the patterns. You could even do them even less at like every 5 season pass ranks or something like that. The people that need them are going to get them, and they're going to be grinding for them. The people that already have all their weapons crafted aren't really going to care about it. They're just going to get a couple in their inventory and sit on it until something pops up that they need to use them for, and then they'll spend them and keep moving on. Like, capping this off just makes no sense to me, especially again because of how difficult some of these things are to access.
Yeah, I'm looking at my dim just now, and I'm looking at weapons that I use all the time, and it's weapons from like season 16 and 17, like Hollow Denial. Like this season, it's next season it's not going to be as prominent because we're not getting volatile flow, but Hollow Denial will still be really good. But like, if a new player comes in, it's like, oh, what would you recommend for a Void legendary trace rifle? It's like, well, I would recommend Hollow Denial, but I don't know where you can get that. And if you can get 5 recipes, then you got to get up to what Impetus was saying there. Like, you got to get up to 80 in the season pass. So like, it's just, it's really frustrating. This kind of crafting / deep sight kind of issue.
Yeah.
Like, again, like, just to reiterate, I don't necessarily have much a problem with the type of currency if they uncapped it, or if they put it up to a much higher cap, or if there's more ways to get harmonizers, fine. my biggest problem is still Bungie hasn't really gave us an answer to how do we get these old weapons in the first place.
Speaking of acquiring weapons,
that is no. I'm not sorry. Yeah, we got to move on because I'll take forever on this.
Well, this episode's going to be 3 hours long.
Yeah, we gotta win here. Exotic weapon raid dungeon triumphs. New raids and dungeons have had triumph systems that boost your chance of receiving the exotic attached to that raid or dungeon. Duality for Heart Shadow, Spire for Hierarchy, and Root for conditional finality. This system is being retroactively applied to a bunch of content. Last Wish, Deepstone, Vow, Vault of Glass, and King's Fall are all having these systems implemented for them. Harder triumphs like Flawless, things like that, give you greater boosted chances. Even the smaller encounter-specific ones give you a little bit of a boost chance to your exotic. You can go see the tables they have in the TWABs there. Awesome change. This is something people have been asking for forever. Stories of people running Vault of Glass and killing Atheon like 205 times before they got Vex to drop. I think we're kind of finally putting that to bed to where, like, if you have done every triumph, like, you shouldn't be going more than like 30 clears without getting this thing, especially if you're pumping your chances up every time you do, an exotic. I remember, for instance, like going through Root and like taking the time with my clan to do all the individual, like static challenges, so to say, one run, and I got the thing to drop like 3 runs later. Obviously, that's a bit anecdotal, but like this system is just an absolute win. Can't argue with that. A few things that are going unchanged are like Divinity and Galahorn, right? For like Garden and Grasp of Avarice. Those are like specific quests. So, I mean, you just get it or you don't. And some of the other dungeons like Shattered Throne, Pit, and Prophecy, they don't have an exotic, so this doesn't really apply to them. But overall, big old W in the terms of game RNG. It still requires you to do the raid. It still requires challenges to be taken on. Actually gives you deterministic paths to increase your chances for the loot.
Yeah, from one low point to one very high point. Again, we've all got the exotics at this point, or at least most of them. But for new players and for players like me who had to spend 58 Atheon clears before I finally got Vex Mythoclast, this is just such a great change. I'm really glad that I knew this was coming because they did kind of tease it in a few TWABs ago. But my biggest concern was, will these be retroactive? Because we've had things that Bungie have implemented and it's like, you have to redo them for it to properly track. But no, it's retroactive. If you've done Flawless Last Wish and you still don't have 1,000 Voices, if you go back in and get that clear, then you'll have a much higher chance if you make sure to complete those nodes before you actually get to the end or open the chest, I guess, when it comes to these raids. But big thumbs up from me.
From all of us, truly. A great change. Love that. Really do love that. We got a few more small changes here. I'm going to touch quickly on these. Finest Matter Weave and Rainmaker consumables are now being deprecated. You can just consume those for the reward. You don't need to do any steps to get them, so that'll be nice there. Vanguard bounties are being updated so that they are now fireteam based and can be done almost everywhere. Great change there. Archie the Exodog has a new permanent home in the tower, so you can go back to giving that good boy some scritches, and that will count for your emblem as well if you want to keep that number going up. We did also get a look at the 2 new Trials weapons that are coming in, so the Messenger is returning with a refreshed perk pool, and then the Unexpected Resurgence Adaptive Arclave, that is our new Trials weapon for next season. The Inquisitor Slug Shotgun and Whistler's Whim Bow are going to exit the loot pool. The non-adept versions of those will be available for legacy focusing at Saint 14. We were lastly given a heads up about what to expect from future TWABs / articles, so they will be going into more weapon and armor changes, showing off some new exotics for Season 21, and then also giving us the launch date for the new dungeon coming in Season 21. That was the Mega TWAB. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we shift over to our Abilities Sandbox Changes article?
No, let's jump in. We got a lot here too, honestly.
We do have a lot here. All right. I will touch on the high-level goals, and then I'll pass it off to one of you for the fragment slots here. So this is our abilities sandbox changes coming in Season 21. Bungie's high-level goals here, they want to increase the viability of roaming supers in high-difficulty PvE content. They want to incorporate subclass keywords into a selection of light subclass supers. They want to reduce the amount of unlimited uptime mobility available in the Crucible, and they want to increase the build crafting capabilities of a selection of stasis and light subclass aspects. So let's talk about some aspects here, getting some changes here. I'll pass this off to Saint. What's coming in Season 21 for certain aspects?
We're getting some buffs. They kind of started off a little conservative on these, and now they're opening things up. So all the following aspects are now going to have 2 fragment slots, which all of them previously had 1. Trapper's Ambush, Shatter Dive, and Gunpowder Gamble for the Hunter, Bastion and Juggernaut for the Titan, and Chaos Accelerant for the Warlock. They said to set expectations here, we are not committing to a minimum of 2 fragment slots for all future aspects, but we made these change. We've had these allowments for a long time, these allotments, and as we kind of monitored the effects aspects performance, they felt the ability to buff them up a little bit without much worry, right? To give them a little bit more freedom as we monitor the affected aspects performance following this change. Additional updates to their potency level should be expected. So I think this is great. Anytime you're limited to 1 fragment slot, it's just kind of like limiting your build potential. And I get that this is like, you kind of like they talked about here. They have, they're like, we may change this in the future. We're not saying this is going to be a minimum from now on, but we're opening things up a little bit, and we may, kind of tune these in the future depending on how everything goes. And I think this is definitely a win, especially like I'm looking at Bastion. There is like a huge win for Void Titan, and I know that some of these are pretty limiting considering some aspects go up to 3 slots. So pretty excited about this one.
Yeah, good changes here, especially for Earth. That's 3 aspects now getting from 1 to 2. I tried to use Gunpowder Gamble back in Season 17, and I really love Gunpowder Gamble, but having from going from 4 or 3 fragments to 5, if you compare the other 2 aspects, it's just like, well, I'm losing so much if I have 2 less fragments. Yeah, good changes here. All right, we have some super changes coming up here. I'll kick us off with sort of general stuff here. So the super PvE damage resistance have all been increased by 20% or roughly. Bungie did also clarify, because I think there was some commentary like Ward of Dawn and Well of Radiance are now giving DR, but it's they clarified to say that's on super cast animation. So Ward of Dawn and Well of Radiance doesn't give you an extra 20% DR intrinsically. It's just when you cast those animations, which is for Ward of Dawn, it's pretty fast anyway. Yeah. Very good change. For the Hunters, some changes to a bunch of supers here. We've got Golden Gun, that's both Marksman and Deadshot, is getting a damage increase by 20% in PvE. Arc Staff is also getting a damage PvE increase of 20%. And Spectral Blades is getting a damage increase of 35%. The heavy attack now also void weakens targets on hit and fixed. They said that they fixed an issue causing some right-hand Spectral Blades attacks to fail to connect when attacking at maximum attack speed. All right, so I do have some thoughts here that I wanted to share. In general, I think Hunter Supers are doing really well. So shout out to both Tethers, Gathering Storm, Blade Barrage, Silence and Squall, Silk Strike, Golden Guns I use sometimes as well. But I'm still not convinced the Hunter roaming supers will be decent enough for me to use them. I did make a point last year that not every super has to be viable in both sandboxes, and I still stand by those changes. I still stand by that, but these changes on paper look pretty lackluster for Arc Staff and Spectral Blades. To be honest, Golden Gun didn't really need a damage increase, but I'm happy for it. Because it is competitive in boss situations like the Techians, the Tech Witches, Golgoroth, Oryx, all those places where Blade Barrage isn't as viable. So the big points I wanted to make, just with while we're on this topic, is that single use and roaming supers do need a much wider gap between each. A lot of the single use supers are just as good for boss damage as they are for ad clearing. So I'm looking at like Gathering Storm. Gathering Storm is excellent for damage on a single target, but it's also really good for ad clear. You just pop that, chuck it at, I'm thinking like the Mars Battlegrounds. There's many areas where a lot of the ads tend to congregate in a central position. Lob my my Gathering Storm. I don't need Arc Staff in those situations. It's really sad. So for Arc Staff, I really want them to focus on the ad clearing potential for this super without the need for Raid and Flux. And really a general point, like a side note here, is that exotic armor should be supplementary to your subclass loop. They shouldn't be the core foundation or the one that kind of closes out the loop. That's my opinion when it comes to exotic armor, especially when it comes to super exotic armor. Arc Staff in general, I feel like does need some arc kind of keywords implemented. So blind or jolt on successive hits, or for example, the Arc Staff combo where you do 2 lights and then a heavy, you do that PAM attack, applies blind. You know, I'm thinking of scenarios where I might use this against unstoppable champions, or in places where I can blind a lot of combatants. Spectral Blades, I think that they're going to go for the Void Weaken, which will be 15% on the heavy attack. Ideally, I'd have that bumped up to 30% to match Tether. Impetus, you asked me before we started recording, would I trade Tether, the Tether having 30%, to have Spectral Blades to have that 30%? I'm unsure. I know the community would be like, whoa, let's not get that far. let's not completely throw Tether into the dumpster yet. But obviously, you know, Tether still has suppression. It still has the shared damage. It has volatile if you're on Mobius. I'm not sure. Maybe. I think Tether could be kind of brought down to give Spectral Blades a little bit more of a love. But generally, I just think, again, with Arc Staff, I think they could really make it an ad clearing super. So, you know, throw in some volatile explosions when you kill a bunch of ads. Tether already does a great job for ad clear and for support and boss DPS. So where in the sandbox does Spectral Blades have? You know, what position can they have in the PvE sandbox? Again, they don't need to be this massive, like, they do everything. Like, they do everything. They cook you breakfast, they do your taxis. I don't want that for Spectral Blades, because again, we don't need to have everything viable in both sandboxes. But in the moment, currently, Spectral Blades isn't good in either sandbox, so it's just like, come on. But yeah, otherwise, just make Spectral Blades, you know, apply volatility intrinsically. And my final point here, before I pass you over to the Resident Titan, is that I feel like roaming supers should just last much longer. I understand this might cause havoc in the PvP sandbox, but if there's a way to split up their durations for each sandbox, I think that we would be golden. Because I think the ad clearing supers here, the roaming supers, they still don't last as long as I want them to last. And because I need something like Raid and Flux for Arc Staff, Raid and Flux with Arc Staff is really good because you get that damage increase, you get the slower super drain. But again, to my point of I'm kind of done with exotic armor being the core foundation for a lot of these supers. So that is my monologue for these changes, and I'll pass you over to Saint, who is hopefully more positive with the upcoming Titan changes.
Yeah, we just might we just might have a reason to run Fist of Havoc again. Starting off, Fist of Havoc light and heavy attack costs have been reduced from 8.5 to 6% and 18 to 12% respectively, and the heavy attack has been given a 33% damage increase in PvE. Heavy attack now arc blinds targets near the center of the slam area, which arc blind, as you know, will counter unstoppable champions. Okay, we got a pretty good damage buff. We got kind of to Court's point just a second ago, an indirect duration increase by the fact that it just, it's going to cost you less to use each attack by about 30%, and also that champion counter. And I think that this addresses something that some of the other supers in the game, like when I'm using my Strand super, I can easily counter unstoppable champions and deal damage to them. So it's nice to see something else like that in the game with the Arc Blind. Thunder Crash is just so good though that I'm not sure if this is going to be enough to change the meta there because of the burst DPS potential and the ability to just knock out a champion real quick in most tiers of content, or almost all tiers of content if you're using Curus. I do appreciate, though, that there is an actual argument for being able to stun some unstoppable champions, especially if that is going to be a major threat in the encounter that you are going through. I think that's going to be, honestly, the biggest draw here, is that I have the ability to clear out a few ads, stun a champion, and then hopefully kill that champion as well with my roaming super. So maybe there's some GM or some raid scenarios in which this could actually be pretty viable. Next up, we have Glacial Quake, increase Shiver Strike speed while in super by 10%. Okay, nice. Increase light attack damage by 20%. Okay, really solid. Don't know if that is boosting Stasis Titan up by that much, but hey, damage boost, speed boost, and the Shiver Strike, I'm going to absolutely take it. Definitely Shiver Strike is going to feel way better and actually going to do more than just kind of throw targets around, which I feel like this is very notorious for. I use this a lot. I use Glacial Quake and the Strand, or Stasis Titan, I should say, in general, during Kingsfall a lot, right? Doing that whole Font of Might build. And I remember so often just hitting a knight and watching the knight just kind of bounce around. And I'm like, cool, well, my guys in mid can just deal with that now, I guess. He'll be fine down there. He can take care of them. Sentinel Shield, increase PvE damage by 20%. Honestly, I feel like the super is already pretty good. You pair it with something like Doomfang Pauldrons, and now it's just going to absolutely pop off because of this change. So, yeah, keep an eye out for Doomfangs next season whenever this goes live. Last couple of ones are related to Solar here. Hammer of Soul and Burning Maul both got their damage and PvE increased by 10%. Burning Maul now creates a sunspot on cast when Soul Invictus is equipped, so it matches the behavior of Hammer of Soul, and the heavy attack for Burning Maul now applies Scorch over time, which could lead to an ignition, again, an unstopped champ counter. The range on Hammer of Soul is probably still a really good argument for using it over Burning Maul, despite the fact that Burning Maul's damage is really good. You're limited by the fact that you better be on the same playing field, level, as your enemy, and you probably need to be in a little bit closer range. Although Burning Maul super is very potent, and this is just going to get higher. If you are in a pretty close range scenario and you can use something like Syntheseps, Burning Maul actually puts out very solid total damage output. I honestly already like using Hammer of Soul. I'll talk about that in just a second, but I've done a run of the GM this season, Glassway with Hammer of Soul, and I still think it feels pretty good, especially if you're hitting those targets from further away with the way that they shatter. Always will welcome a damage increase, though, because I really enjoy just Solar Titan kit in general. Is just so much fun. Burning Maul, I'm not really sure. The Sunspot's nice for just some restoration. That's all I have to say about that. I think that's much more inconsistent than the Arc Blind. I feel like Arc Blind on Fist of Havoc heavy attack is more meaningful than the Burning Maul Cyclone applying Scorch, unless that Scorch over time is very high and very strong. You compare that with Ashes and get some quick ignitions. But I will say, even if I'm not getting ignitions, love to see subclass verb integrations into supers beyond what we had on their initial rollout, which was not a ton, and I really appreciate that. Impetus, what are the warlocks getting?
Oh man. Let's start out with Nova Warp. Remember that one? So that's getting its PvE damage increased by 15%, and a fully charged attack now makes enemies volatile on hit. Okay, cool. Gonna be hard to recommend that when Nova Bomb, both types of Nova Bomb, are getting their PvE damage increased by 20%. I think that's probably the Void super that most of us Warlocks are familiar with, using both of those variants for different situations. So probably still going to recommend Nova Bomb, probably still going to personally run Nova Bomb, but it's nice to see Nova Warp get some attention. And yeah, we have some volatile synergy, which has been a little bit hard for us Warlocks to get. So that's nice. That's cool. Storm Trance, increased PvE damage by 25%. Damage ramp while attacking now occurs more quickly, over 3 seconds and down from 5. The landfall detonation and seekers now jolt targets. That is an overload champion counter. This is tremendous. I'll talk a little bit more about Storm Trance in particular in this change in just a moment. Chaos Reach is getting its PvE damage increased by 25%. This has been a very lackluster super for quite a while now. It's no longer going to be the case. Sustained damage on a single target now creates a jolting lightning strike at the target's location. Again, Jolt is an overload champion counter. Increased maximum strafe speed from 3.5 meters per second to 4.5 meters per second, and they have also adjusted the camera while in super to avoid the player's body blocking view of targets when strafing. That has definitely happened before. That will no longer be the case. Very, very happy to see some love given to Chaos Reach. Very interested to see what the Jolt multiplier is for that lightning strike when we're in super on that single target. This could be, a decent single target damage option, a DPS super, as we kind of like to call them more generally. I hope it is. It's a very fun power fantasy to just shoot out a beam of lightning at a target and melt them. So here's hoping we get back to that a little bit, of course. Winter's Wrath, they have increased the damage of this super by 10%. I'm assuming whoever made Ballador's Wrath Reavers is clamoring at Bungie for a DPS super meta for Winter's Wrath. Not quite sure I understand that logic, but again, it's a buff. I'll take it. And then Daybreak, they have adjusted the super camera to allow the player to look down further and avoid VFX blocking view of targets when moving quickly. That's just a quality of life change. We'll always take quality of life changes, especially for Daybreak. I am really, really excited for Storm Trance. I think the Arc Warlock kit is going to get a huge boost to its potency with these super buffs. Crown of Tempests in particular, plus Storm Trance, and the existing Arc 3.0 kit may rival Stasis and Strand Warlock for the best ad clear build going into Season 21. Again, I'll have to play with it. Just looking at it on paper, I have some thoughts, but in practice it may play out entirely differently. So we shall see, but I'm very excited. I do think the Arc 3.0 kit, excluding supers, up till now has been quite strong for Warlocks, but with these buffs, I think we're going to be in a really great spot. Crown of Tempest is in my mind now going to be the number one exotic armor piece for Warlocks. I think Fallen Sunstar is great for support, but just for general ad clear and dealing damage, especially with that buff to Storm Trance of 25%, I think... I think Arc Warlocks are going to be really, really good for melting enemies in the end game with lightning, which is what we love. Besides that, Chaos Reach getting some love. Very happy for that. I don't know. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the Arc Warlock kit can be something that we take into raids and dungeons for boss melting. It's a very short super as it is, so it definitely needed a damage boost because it was not quite putting out enough. But is this worthwhile over, say, Void Warlock for damage, or, of course, Well of Radiance for support or damage over time if you're running Starfire Protocol? We'll see. But I would love to have yet another option in our arsenal that's not tied to Solar or Void for dealing damage, or now Strand, of course. I mean, options are always great. And this definitely strikes me as a play the way that you want kind of approach that Bungie's taken here for the abilities, which is what drew me to the game in the first place. So, if Storm Trance turns out to be a really good option, I will definitely be on Arc Warlock a lot more next season, especially if we get an Arc Surge, but we shall see. Any other thoughts here before we turn to our Strand tuning from you two about maybe some other classes besides your main here? Very excited for the increased aspects. I think that's going to be great, especially for Gunpowder Gamble and Chaos Accelerant. I really felt like those were kind of holding back those respective subclasses. So having more fragments to play with, I think will kind of round things out. And then also having some of those supers buffed as well is going to be really nice. Anything else you guys got to add?
I am an Arc Warlock, so I'm looking forward to Storm Trance and Chaos Reach, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the Arc Warlock having access to Jolt pretty easy, at least on landfall with the Seekers, and Chaos Reach when you're doing sustained damage. We'll be very interested to see what the multiplier is for that, because if it's pretty mediocre, jolting kind of multiplier might not be as useful as, say, just using something else. Did Nova Bomb really need a 20% increase? Because it is pretty potent.
Yes, absolutely.
At the moment.
Always.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like same with Golden Gun. They're like, hey, Golden Gun's pretty good. You know what? Let's just pump that up 20%. You know what?
I'll take it, but, it's still not going to make me use other roaming supers as I detailed earlier on. But, yeah. Titans, yeah. I do use Burning Wall from time to time. It's pretty fun. But having more kind of direct access to the sandbox with the heavy attack cyclone, giving that scorch. And yeah, to your point earlier, Saint, be interesting to see what that scorch over time is, if it's any kind of use. No point of it doing one stack every 2 seconds. But yeah, looks good. But again, to my points earlier on, I think these roaming supers just need a little bit more love, longer in the super, and more sandbox verbs.
Yeah. I like Chaos Reach. It's just such a classic like power fantasy of like the beam attack, and I'm happy to see that getting pumped up. Also, again, like I was joking, Golden Gun getting a 20% buff. Like, what? You're about to see some fishy leg, fishy business going on over here with some boss damage getting put up, but I'm happy. It'll be fun. I'll be enjoying it.
Like I said, hunters have some really great supers, like some of the best supers in the game, and then they've got some of the worst supers. But yeah, anyway, I won't retread that path. All right,
let's jump into Strand stuff.
Yeah.
Corey, you go ahead.
Yeah, so we do have some tuning updates. I don't think we're expecting any massive changes when it comes to Strand, with it obviously just being released. They're more focused on the other elements. But, we did get some. They have, this is something that they've already talked about. It's the 30 spike, which we've kind of covered before, which is going to get a damage increase by 55% in PvE. Be slightly easier kind of to catch the dart when it returns. You'll get increased energy as well. Now pierces Cabal Phalanx shields, and it no longer prioritizes the catch action over the grapple melee if an enemy target is within grapple melee range. That is something I've ran to many times. It does prioritize the catch action when you've already threw it out and it's coming back to you and you're about to grapple melee, but then you catch it and it's just like, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to grapple melee. But yeah, some nice changes here. For the Titans, we have the Frenzied Blade. They have decreased the cooldown based on how many melee charges the player has stored. I talked about this earlier on. So at 0 charges, the cooldown is reduced by 15%, and at 2 charges, the cooldown is reduced by 30%. The Warlocks also have that for the Arcane Needle. They are also getting a increased projectile speed based on the projectile's flight time. Initial velocity increased to 40 meters per second, up from 30, and the final velocity is increased to 70 meters per second, up from 60, and increased projectile tracking strength by around about 10%. All right, who wants to cover the Strand Miscellaneous and other? We've got Stasis coming up as well.
I can do that. Yeah, Grapple is getting its base cooldown reduced from 105 seconds to 82 seconds. As a reminder, whenever Bungie talks about base cooldown, they are referring to the cooldown that is at tier 3 of the relevant ability. So in this case, being a grenade, that is Discipline. So that's tier 3 Discipline is now going to be at 82 seconds. It is going to take it from the same category to as Void Wall, Thermite, Arc Bolt, Storm to the category with Healing Grenade. For reference, that means that only Fusion Grenades and Dustfield / Firebolt Grenades are faster. Fusion Grenades has a 73-second cooldown, and Dustfield and Firebolt have 64 seconds. So this is going to be much quicker. And at Tier 10 Discipline, Grapple will now be 32 seconds. That is down from 41. If you compare that with the Thread of Generation fragment, you are going to have quite a quick recharge on your grapple. And as a reminder for the other two strand grenades, Threadling and Shackle, they're at 152 seconds. That is the second slowest cooldown at Tier 3 Discipline. That is down to 59 seconds at Tier 10. So Thread of Generation is pretty essential for most of the grenades, and now for grapple, it's going to make it very, very quick. They've also reduced the minimum time between grapple activations from 2.5 seconds to 0.2 seconds. So very, very nice. Grapple getting a great love coming into Season 21. But speaking of Thread of Generation, not getting a lot of love. It is probably the strongest fragment, maybe aside from Thread of Warding. But for Thread of Generation, reduced energy generation provided by some damage over time mechanics. They have also reduced the energy generation provided by trace rifles by 36%. Yes, that was allowing for some very abusive grenades on Strand Subclass. But yeah, Grapple getting some love. I don't know if I'm going to be using it a whole lot with the changes made to the Grapple melee, especially in regards to certain mod combos, but we'll see. You know, the full Strand kit isn't out entirely, so there may be some changes down the road. Of course, there's maybe some exotic armor on different classes that might be based around Grapple. We'll see, but I do think these are some pretty positive changes. They clearly want players to be using the Grapple more often, so we shall see if that is the case. Thread of Generation, I think we were kind of expecting this was going to get tuned. It is quite strong, and yeah, we'll see how strong it is in next season. It's probably still going to be on every single one of my subclass builds for Strand, though, as it is quite potent. Saint stasis tuning updates. Is this going to be enough? Let's find out what's happening.
Yeah, we have some that I think were like very obvious ones or like, you know, kind of hoped for ones, and some that I really did not see coming here, or I don't think people were really anticipating. Okay, Hunter, Withering Blade, increased maximum tracking strength by 12.5%. All right. Okay. Yeah, sure. You know, why not? I've seen what those Titan shields can do. Why not the Shurikens too, right? Titan Shiver Strike, maximum thrust while in flight increased by 16%. Okay. Downward maximum or decreased maximum downward influence of gravity while in flight by 18%. For those of you who have not used Shiver Strike, you really would just kind of go right off of a cliff, and it felt like you were falling super quickly whenever you're using this movement ability, which honestly I feel like it's a melee ability. It feels like a movement ability. So we're kind of zooming. We're not falling so quickly while we're using it, and we're moving a little bit quicker while we do. Another very PvP relevant, I think, one, along with that one, is Howl of the Storm, increased width of freezing cone versus players by 31%. For anybody that was playing a lot of Crucible near Beyond Light, you know that this was an absolutely brutal ability to play against. I myself, with the Crystal Green slide, right, as I believe it's called, you slide in, you throw out your Howl of the Storm crystals, and the person that was attempting to fight you with the shotgun is now just frozen, standing there next to you, and the ability to get that cone out quickly before they even round the corner is maybe coming back, which I really didn't see. Not sure why that's happening, but I'm going to try to give it a chance in the Crucible before we see how that actually plays out. But the movement of Shiver Strike is definitely really nice to see. That one had been feeling bad for quite a while now after having such a reign of terror in its initial debut. And then finally, Warlock's Frost Pulse now provides 2 meters of additional melee lunge range after activation for 1.2 seconds. What? 2 meters? Yeah. We'll see some Titan changes coming up in a second, but it's kind of like, all right, Titans, you've had your time. Time for Warlocks to melee and rubber band people from across the map, which, yeah, I don't know.
I didn't think we needed more.
But
I didn't think we needed more melee lunge range things. But it's okay in PvE. We're not really vested in the PvP sandbox. But I know there was some raised eyebrows when we read that. It's like, is this necessary?
That sweet movement subclass that is known as Stasis Warlock. Yeah,
right,
sweet.
Exactly. I don't know. So, kind of weird, right? Like, what's happening with Stasis coming back in the Crucible here? Not really. Again, the raised eyebrows. Like, I'll be interested to see if how those affect kind of like the pick rates for some of the more competitive modes and stuff like that. But I don't know.
How are we feeling with these Stasis tuning updates? I was anticipating a lot more. I'm going to be honest. I think Stasis, maybe not necessarily Hunter's doing rather well. I've managed to keep my builds going, and they are just as competitive as Strand and my light subclasses. But more thinking of Titan. I know Titan has this weird kind of aspect, non-synergy. I don't know if you've kind of looked at much of the Titan aspects, Saint. You got any thoughts here?
It just, like, the Shiver Strike speed boost is great for, like, PvP, and, like, yeah, sure, there's some scenarios in PvE where, like, repositioning yourself really quickly is very useful, but, yeah, this is not enough. Like, the Stasis Titan has so much of, like, a melee focus kind of a thing, and, like, that's fine, and Diamond Lances are really fun, but ever since, like, Font of Might and that whole system has been kind of democratized, and I can just get my weapon boost on any class, no matter what I'm using, I really have not played much Titan, right? Like, that is what kept me playing Titan all of, like, those King's Fall challenge runs, King's Fall Day 1, all that stuff, was that whole Font of Might kit, and it was, like, so unique, because of, like, the way that it interacted with other mods in the game, and it was such a niche thing, and it was, like, a good kit, right, for, like, or, like, it was a good balanced kit because it had this super high DPS potential, and then it also had, like, pretty good crowd control for, like, when you were up close and personal in some of the scenarios in King's Fall. But, like, now I just, yeah, I don't know. I think that the what is going to help Stasis Titan much more than this is the elemental charge, mod coming back into the kind of whatever you want to call it, into the fold in the upcoming weeks. And I think that's going to do way more for something like a Hoarfrost Titan build than any of this stuff. This is just not quite it for that.
I was thinking they would have split off the spawning of Stasis shards to either some fragments or give it to some of the other aspects, rather than, every subclass has one aspect that gives you the ability to spawn shards. And yeah, you raise a good point that next season we'll have the armor charge mod related to Stasis shards, but you have to use one aspect. You can't deviate from that, which is frustrating. Unless your other teammate is using your teammates are using those aspects to spawn stasis crystals, but yeah, just not a lot of changes here. Impetus, you got any thoughts?
I think it's pretty indicative of the Stasis Warlock kit that our super got a damage boost in PvE, and then Frost Pulse got 2 additional meters of melee lunge. I think that's pretty indicative of where we're sitting. We're doing quite well. Osmomancy is definitely one of the stronger ad clear builds. I'll be recommending it for the Glassway in a bit here. You pair that with Augur Scepter and you're chilling. Not to be punny here, but it's a very easy to pick up and excel at build, and that's, I think, kind of obvious in the way that Bungie didn't touch any of our non-super kit and just boosted our damage up by a teeny bit and then gave us a PvP change. So, yeah, I think we're okay. There's a whole other conversation to be had about stasis shards and how those should interact that I won't get into, but these changes aren't going to make a huge difference in my playstyle. But again, I'm okay with that because the playstyle that I have right now is doing just fine. I do think Titan probably needs to see a little bit more love and attention, and I hope that can come. If it has to be until after Strand, so be it, but I do want to know that there is going to be some bit of a rework, because Behemoth is not doing it either in PvP or PvE, and that's a shame because it was a lot of fun to play. It can be a lot of fun to play if you really maximize into creating crystals and stuff like that, but we have access to other things that do that. The new seasonal stasis bow is pretty much all you need if you want to make stasis crystals. Berglock Curve is just excellent. It's kind of your one-stop destination for stasis crystals, and I'd like to see something a little bit more special for Titans if they want to build into their ability kit with that, or not rely on stasis shards, just stasis shards.
All right. Well, to round things off for this particular section, we've got sort of wider light tuning updates. I'll start us off with the Hunter. For Void, with the Snare Bomb, they are increased the PvE weaken duration on detonation from 4 seconds to 8 seconds. Pretty nice there. The rest are solar related. The weighted throwing knife on mouse and keyboard reduced minimum tracking shape size by 25% and maximum tracking shape size by 10%. The shape grows over 0.5 seconds after the projectile is thrown. More kind of a PvP kind of vibe here. It's a little bit of a reduction. The lightweight knife, remember that. The projectile speed increased from 30 meters per second to 40, and the tracking shape size increased by 20%. So they're offloading the kind of utility of weighted throwing knife and sort of putting that on lightweight knife. Because on precision kill with the lightweight knife, you do get radiant. That is the kind of the spin with lightweight knife. Grants radiant for 5 seconds on precision hit. So precision hit, not precision kill. It's on precision hit. And then finally, something that I am very looking forward to is the Gunpowder Gamble aspect, which, along with getting an extra fragment slot, is getting a reduced cooldown from 12 seconds to 6 seconds. Really cool. I am definitely using Solar next season. Probably going to be Solar Surge as well. So I can't wait to use Gunpowder Gamble on those champions. Saint. We have some news regarding shoulder charges for the Titan.
It is certainly a change to the game. It now costs 15% of your melee energy to activate shoulder charge abilities. Arc, Solar, Void, whatever, Shield Bash, Hammer Strike, all the same. Base cooldowns are now standardized at 91 seconds, previously from 100 to 104 seconds. Man, I kind of knew this date was coming to some extent of like the tanky class can't be the fast class, but like also being able to not just use my melee ability to cross a sniper lane with complete immunity is that's going to hurt a little bit, that's kind of a tough one to get over. I don't really, this is not like huge in PvE. The same thing with like movement. Yeah, like it's annoying. I'm not excited about that, but I think, like being able to like cross sniper lanes and stuff like that was like a huge piece of this. And it is only 15%. So your cooldown isn't like super long. At 0 strength, that's like 17 seconds. At 100 strength, that's 7 seconds. But it's just like a cooldown at all, and it's just gonna be tough to get used to. I'm sure. Like I'll use my hammer strike to just like fly around sometimes in PvE, like pretty often. And that's just gonna be tough. It's gonna be definitely a knockback. Kind of a mixed bag on this next one. Arc ability Knockout, lunge range reduced from 6.5 meters to 5.5. Yeah, it's whatever. I'm not. Again, this is like that probably needed to happen. Like I don't know why Warlocks are getting a 2-meter increase on one of their melee abilities, and just when the Titans are like finally getting fixed, but. Hey, who knows? Good side of this one, though, uncharged melee PvE damage bonus increased from 60% to 100%. Oh, man, rampaging Arc Titans in PvE, rejoice. This is great. Shield Throw on Void is also being updated. Increased base impact damage from 60 to 70. Nice, great, love that. As some, this is like a great loot for offensive bulwark. And also it says increased consistency of finding and adjusting initial trajectory towards a new target after a bounce. Man, this thing already tracked hard. So like, I don't know what's going to be going on after this one, but hitting those shield throws for a little bit of an extra overshield is now just going to be even easier, making offensive bulwark even better. And you love to see that. Last one for Titans. Throwing Hammer now adjusts its initial flight trajectory based on your aim assist target. Okay, it's not like quite, an exotic pair of gloves called like Mjolnir's Touch or something like that, but like we're getting a little bit of tracking on the hammer, which is definitely not something I would have expected, but pretty nice quality of life. You are now going to have to run after your hammer less often, and it's probably going to bounce back to you, which is that's a good change right there. I'm happy about that one. I am interested to see just how much it is going to adjust its trajectory to track to your target. Warlocks, what's going on?
Yeah, we're getting some interesting changes. On the solar side, Incinerator Snap, they have fixed an issue preventing the secondary projectile arming shape from activating. Cool, love it. Awesome. Get that secondary projectile arming shape activating properly. That's what we needed over there. On Arc, the Ball Lightning melee has had its PvE damage increased by 30%. They've also reduced the ping scaler on both primary and secondary detonations, so combatants are less likely to be knocked out of the secondary strike area while the player is amplified. I don't know what some of those words mean, but that sounds very cool, so I'll take the extra damage. On Void, Chaos Accelerant in regards to the scatter grenade itself. They've increased the tracking consistency of charged scatter grenade submunitions. They have increased the submunition arming duration, and they have fixed a bug where some submunitions were impacting the ground on creation in some situations, resulting in an early detonation. I know this has been kind of a sore spot for us who have wanted to use something other than vortex grenades. So scatter grenades, hopefully getting some much needed love. I'd love for that to be a little bit of a competition, especially in PvE compared to what feels like the overwhelming dominance of vortex grenades. So I'll be trying out the scatter grenades. We'll see how that works with our new Chaos Accelerant, newly buffed Chaos Accelerant aspect. Additionally, still within Chaos Accelerant, the Magnetic Grenade, was formerly the handheld Supernova ability, they've increased the charged hold time from 3.2 seconds to 4.5 seconds. Okay, all right. Interesting changes. Again, the Incinerator Snap and Ball Lightning mechanical changes are interesting. I'm not quite sure how much I'm going to notice those, but I will notice the increase to the PvE damage on Ball Lightning. And again, if scatter grenades can become a bit of a competitor to vortex grenades, then I think that'll be great to have a decent option and not just the one overwhelmingly powerful one in PvE specifically. So very excited for all of that. We did get some tuning to subclass keywords. I'll touch on these quickly here before we pivot over to the Glassway GM. Solar Scorch. They have increased the stun time before Scorch stacks begin falling off from 3 seconds to 4.5 seconds on PvE combatants. This will affect a lot of things, but specifically on the weapon side, I do want to shout out that Prometheus Lens is going to benefit quite strongly from this change. Very excited for that. We were talking in the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord, kind of in our weapon roll channel about incandescent on solar legendary trace rifles, what to run, and I've kind of been at a bit of an impasse here. I don't have incandescent on my retraced path. I run Golden Tricorn, and I'm probably not going to run it on Akazi's Dejection when Paracausal Affinity is just so strong, so I don't really have incandescent on an ad clear special like a trace rifle. And now with this change, I feel okay with that, because I think if I really do want to take advantage of incandescent and building up scorch stacks, Prometheus Lens definitely seems like it's positioned to be the option for that. So I think on the weapon side, that'll be really nice. But again, this will also help out in numerous solar abilities as well. So very, very nice change for Scorch. On the arc side, we've got 2 changes to Jolt and Speed Booster. Jolt is having its base PvE damage reduced by 15%, and they have also reduced the additional damage scaler versus major combatants in PvE by around about 20%. Jolt was quite strong. I think we've all kind of arrived at that point. I don't know, if it needed a nerf by this amount, we'll see, but it was definitely a very strong verb. And then the last change they've made to Speed Booster, bonus jump acceleration scaler has been reduced from 1.5 seconds to 1.25 times. It now activates while sprinting after 2.5 seconds, and that is down from 3 seconds. It now also lingers while the player is not sprinting for 2 seconds, which is up from 1.5 seconds. And finally, they have fixed a bug where if the player was already sprinting and then became amplified, Speed Booster would not be granted, so that should be a little bit more consistent to proc now. Bungie did finally state at the end of this article that this isn't the complete list of abilities changes coming in Season 21's launch later this month, so stay tuned for the full list of patch notes on launch day, and as always, they will be monitoring how these changes land and will adjust accordingly based on both data and feedback. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for whatever is coming in the patch notes that didn't make it into this giant abilities article, nor the giant TWAB as well. Goodness sakes, there's a lot of information that we've had so far and a lot of information coming. Folks, you guys got any final thoughts before we jump over to the Grandmaster Nightfall?
I think, there are some good changes in here. Again, just to really quickly highlight, my problems are still with roaming supers. Just still aren't. I feel like on paper, looking at this, don't think they're going to be used much. I don't think I'll be using Art Staff or Spectral Blades anytime soon. Might be wrong. 35% increase with Spectral Blades is substantial. That is a big buff. But my problem still lies with they don't last long. Because you have to use exotics to sort of enhance that ability, it's just like I'm sick and tired of having those type of exotics that are kind of, they close out the loop. They make your subclass builds, and it's just like, okay, but what if I'm not running Raiden Flux or Wisdom Vest? So that's my takeaway. There, some really good changes in here, but I think in regards to roaming supers and stasis subclasses, I think they still need a little bit more love.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised by some of these changes in the way, the some of the damage buffs are really high, where I feel like they could have been used in other places. It feels really good to see Fist of Havoc bumped up, because Thundercrash has just been the de facto choice for so long, since pretty much Arc 3.0 came out. It's been Thundercrash. It's not even a question. Jolt nerf, you hate to see it, but also it's so omega strong, so I don't think that's super surprising. And I don't know, other than that, Chaos Reach buff is also a highlight. Like I said, I really enjoy that power fantasy of the beam attack. I think it's really cool, so I'm really happy to see that one get buffed up.
All right, well, that is it with our TWAB and abilities sandbox change coming for Season 21. We have covered the Glassway Grandmaster in previous episodes. This will be the third time we've covered it. So we will be kind of going over it a little bit faster than usual. There's nothing really changed compared to the other strikes. So we will have the Buzzard, is obviously the returning sidearm. It'll also be double rewards when this episode goes out for that week for the Buzzard. This is also the penultimate week. We will have the Swarm, which is Lake of Shadows, last week of Season 20. And just a reminder, Season 21 begins 23rd of May. So what are we after here? We've got Glassway. The Void, the threat is Void, and the surges for this week, when it comes out, will be Solar and Strand. The Overcharge is Grenade Launcher. We'll have Arc Shields, of which there's 8 of them, and Solar Shields, of which there's 3. So not a lot of shields going on here. Champions, different story though. We have a lot of champions. We have 16 Overload, and we have 12 Barrier. A lot of them are concentrated in the boss room. As we've covered before, that is the big sort of pain point for a lot of fire teams. But to kind of alleviate those pain points, let's look at some recommended weapons. Kind of some weapons that we've covered before. I'll start us off with the primaries. For exotics, we've got Revision 0. We've got Outbreak Perfected. Both of those can be used for barrier champions. And we've got, of course, Quicksilver Storm. Very solid one. Of course, it is Strand Surge on, so you'll be getting that 25% increase if you're not already using the Auto/SMG artifact mod. For legendaries, we've got Ogma for your barriers, for Amit for your overloads, and Summoner for your overloads. Again, solar synergy here. What have we got for specials? Impetus.
Yeah, you can take this several different ways here. I think for the barrier side, we've got some excellent options for a long distance here. Forerunner being a barrier sidearm mod, taking advantage of that. Got really great range. That'll be really nice for dealing with those barriers at a distance. If you also want to tie into both barrier synergy and solar surges, we do have Ariana's Vow. Kind of been a while since I think people have recommended that, but it is an excellent option now within this particular context. If you want to take advantage of Overload, Wave Splitter can be quite strong there. That is going to really tie into some excellent Void Verbs there. I think that's probably, well, actually with the changes coming to Prometheus Lens, that's maybe now my second favorite exotic trace rifle, but a huge recommendation for getting into that weaken and suppression synergy there. On the legendary side, Wilder Flight, Forbearance, Harsh Language, we're taking advantage of that overcharged grenade launcher in our special slot, and those 3 are very strong weapons. Very, very strong. So do take advantage of that for both crowd control and a little bit extra damage towards your champions and mini bosses. On the heavy side, so this is interesting, right? Overcharged grenade launcher. Heavy grenade launchers are... They're in an interesting spot. Do we want to recommend those, or do we want to go machine gun, rocket launcher, kind of what we've been recommending for other GMs? I will probably still lean towards rocket launchers, machine guns. You do have some good heavy grenade launchers. I think it will probably come down to their availability for you and your fire team. So if we want to take advantage of a solar surge and the heavy grenade launcher, both for shield capabilities, you've got Cry Mutiny. That was the Season of the Plunder ritual weapon that's got Incandescent, Swashbuckler, and then also Demo Vorpal. Excellent perks that will definitely shine in here. If you want to go for a more recent option, you've got Regnant. That's the craftable one. You go auto-loading, Explosive Light. You can enhance those perks. Definitely a nice option. On the Adept side, again, taking advantage of a surge here for even more power. You've got Caraxis' Distress. That's our Strand one from the raid. You've got the... Where's my other one? I'm looking at my vault here. Where were you? What was it I was going to recommend? Oh, for Arc Shields, well, yeah, Tarnation. I mean, it's an option. Wendigo is probably the one that I would recommend on the Adept side. That is also Arc and quite strong there. You get your auto-loading, your Explosive Light, as well as the Regnant roll there. I think that's probably the strongest picks you could go for, again, if you really want to tie into the Grenade Launcher Overcharge. For Rocket Launchers, though, I mean... hopefully you've got some good options here. Solar Surge, we've got Roar of the Bear, you've got Hez and Vengeance. Those are going to be quite strong. Galahorn, if you want to even go on the exotic side. Two-Tailed Fox is going to excel quite well in here. I think it'll be interesting on how you want to play that final room. With both of those options, you do run the risk of blowing yourself up, depending on how close the enemy is when you hit them. If you want to play it safer, you do have machine guns, right? Those are putting out quite excellent damage here. You want to tie into solar LMGs. You've got, again, excellent options. We've got the crafted fixed odds. You've got Avalanche from the Dawning. And what is the trials when called. That name is escaping me right now. Help me out, Saint. What's the Solar Adept LMG there from that one? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, Unwavering Duty.
Thank you. Very, very strong PvE machine gun there. That will also tie in. Much safer. Not going to blow yourself up, but you're not going to get that burst damage. I think all of these are excellent options. It'll really come down to whatever you think you can excel at, right? Talk to your fire team. Again, communication here. What do you guys want to run? Definitely tie into the Surges, Solar and Strand. I think those in any of those combinations could probably help you, but if you want to kind of split up, one person run rocket launcher, one person do machine gun, one person do heavy grenade launcher, definitely a strategy. But yeah, I think you don't need to be locked into too many different things. And again, on the exotic side, it's probably rocket launchers. If you're saving your exotic slot, I would definitely run that. Do you run Leviathan's Breath to stagger the wyverns? That's an interesting one. I have not.
I think they're just so hard to hit crits on.
That's true.
Like, I feel like
that's true. You're not going to proc Archer's tempo without hitting the crit. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, maybe not a Leviathan's Breath situation. Yeah,
I think because the wyverns are susceptible to stasis and strand, it's maybe not so necessary to run something like Leviathans. But yeah, we'll talk about that in our subclass builds.
Yeah. Again, not really leaning towards any one particular weapon class. I think there really are some excellent options, but they're going to be up to you guys. So if you want to take advantage of heavy grenade launchers, I think the ones that we've listed so far are going to be quite strong. Rocket launcher-wise, it'll depend on what you have. Again, there's some great solar options there, both on the legendary and on the exotic side. Machine guns, I think a lot of people are probably pretty familiar and comfortable with them this season. There's a lot of reasons to run that. So if you want to lean into your retrofit escapade, if that's something that you've fallen in love with, or a commemoration or what have you, you could definitely make that work in here. It'll just come down to really the boss room and the strats for the boss room. But that's enough on the weapons here. Let's get into our subclass recommendations. Again, we've probably talked about a lot of these different builds in previous episodes, so we won't spend a ton of time, but we'll hit on our highlights here real quick. Court, what do you recommend for our hunter listeners?
So for hunters, I'm going to recommend the Stasis and the Strand subclasses. So you will be definitely within the darkness with all these elements here. As Impetus said, I've already talked about both of these builds. The Strand one, which I'll talk about very briefly, I talked last episode 61. But yeah, this is our Silence and Squall, Dustfield, Shuriken Gamblers, Renewal Grasps, and Agar Scepter build. Touch of Winter and Grim Harvest, we are pairing with Changed, Conduction, Hedrons, Rhyme, and Shards. And for specific mods in the Helm, it's Stasis Siphon, Power Preservation. Arms, it's Momentum Transfer and Impact Induction. Chest, it's Charged Up, and you can pair that with some Resist mods or swap some of them out for Reserve mods, if we've been talking about in the last couple of episodes, kind of weighing up the decision with Resist mods versus Reserve. For legs, it stacks on stacks with Stasis Weapon Surge. Not as necessary to have the Surge, though, because it can cannibalize your stacks when you're wanting to use them for the explosive finisher on the class item. Just a reminder, when you finish finish with 3 or more armor charges, it provides grenade energy back, and it's essentially up to you'll get your grenade back to 90%, 95%, and you can just kind of impact induction the rest, and just keep cycling that. Reaper as well, and then time dilation. So specific weapons here, Agar Scepters is a really solid one, especially when you're getting all the wyverns and the bunch of like trash ads down that middle corridor. Just get one kill, causes that freeze effect, which freezes everything in its range. Pair that with the giant Dustfield grenade and the DR that you get from that as well, and you'll be really good. Rocket launchers, I think I would recommend His and Vengeance, or if you're not using Agar Scepter, you'd rather use something else in your top slot, swap that out and you can run Galahorn for your team. Really great burst kind of supers, because those wyverns can be an absolute pain. I talked about that this last episodes of more detail, of course, this is something that I've got up on the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord server in the build section. For my Strand subclass, again, it's Silt Strike, Shackle Grenade, Thready Spike, Gamblers, Frosties, and I've got Quicksilver here as an option for your exotic weapon, but that's completely free pick for you. The aspects we only have 2, but we of course will be having more in the future. Widow's Silk and Ensnaring Slam. We've got Threads of Continuity, Generation, Warding, and Mind. And the mods, Helmet are Siphon and Finer mods. Arms is Bolstering, Detonation, Impact Induction. Chest, we've got Resistance mods, / reserve mods. Legs is Better Already or Recuperation, Stacks and Stacks, and class is Reaper, Bomber, and Time Dilation. Again, it's entirely up to you. Quicksilver Storm is here. You'll be matching with the Strand Surge, so Osteostriga, Rufus Fury as well. For weapons, in your energy slot, again, Forerunner's a good choice here. Wilder Flight, Forbearance. Sorry, not Forerunner. I meant to read Forbearance. Wilder Flight, Harsh Language for those kind of grenade builds, grenade launcher builds. And again, any rocket launcher for your heavy. Although you could pair a machine gun just to get that thread of generation up, so you've always got your shackle grenade. And that's the whole core foundation of this build, is having that shackle grenade and just throwing it out when you see those, both the champions and the mini Hydra, the mini boss Hydra, and the Wyverns as well. Really great to just pin them in place. Great build here. I've talked about this twice, 58 and 60. Also another build that I've got up on the Destiny Massive Breakdowns forum. If you want to go down the Void route, totally up to you. It's not the weekly surge by the time this comes out, but if you're going to save Glassway for the very last week, then it will be Void Surge. I've got builds for that as well, if you want to head over to the Discord. That is my brief look at the builds. What are the Titans expecting, Saint?
This is like the one strike where I may actually just mix it up and go with Firebolt grenade build and just kind of have some fun. We have a lot of mods that are centered around Firebolts in the seasonal, mod set. Solar Surge, Flare Up, and then Rain of Firebolts, right? So you're definitely going to be using all 3 of those. And they're going to be generating fire sprites. And the really nice part about this is that Flare Up is going to allow you I think it was Solar Surge that collecting a fire sprite gives you armor charge. Collecting a fire sprite also just gives you like 12.5% grenade energy outright, which is really nice and builds into this build. For my kind of main pieces of my subclass on the aspects, I've got Soul Invictus and Roaring Flames, obviously like Firebolt grenades, probably using Aeons for this so I can keep my team up full with heavy ammo, because this is like already a long GM and I want to be making sure that I'm feeding them so we can burn out champs like we talked about in some previous episodes. As far as the fragments go, I'm really leaned in on trying to get the most out of these grenades. Ashes for the Scorch stacks, Eruptions for Ignition AoE, Char for Solar Ignition spreading Scorch, and then Mercy for a little bit of Restoration when I pick up those fire sprites. If I'm playing a little aggressive, it's going to give me some safety there. As far as the mod set goes, I'm really going to be focused on using, like my grenade kickstart mods, right? And a couple of solar surges in my legs. Whenever my charge is getting down, I'll just throw a firebolt. I'm going to get that little solar sprite. I'm going to get my energy back. I'm probably also going to get a good, 10 to 20-ish% energy back on my armor charges that were expended when I threw that grenade. So you just got a really nice loop there. If you're making these nice impacts, you're going to be just chaining ignitions through large groups of enemies. And this is just like really fun. Because I have a lot of damage output there, I'm probably going to be focusing on doing a lot of just champion stunning otherwise. I'll go Forerunner and Summoner, and then Hezen Vengeance. Forerunner for the barrier, Summoner for my overload. It's also buffed. Auto Rifle's got a buff. Summoner's feeling really good. There are a few other solar auto rifles out there like Amit, the fine option as well if you do not have a Summoner with a good trace on it. And then, Heads and Vengeance and then Rockets because I want to be able to deal some burst damage there. If I want to go double special with Forerunner and either like a trace rifle or in this case a GL, because GLs are bumped up like salvo or forbearance, then I'm probably going fixed odds in my heavy slot. I'll have a post up on this build by the time this episode comes out. And the other one I would say, the more kind of conservative one, is definitely that Strand Suspend build, which I've talked about several times. Episode 60 and 61, I believe. I discussed that both times. There's no Unstopped Champs, which I think takes a little bit of viability out of this build, meaning that you would still have to run weapons like Forerunner and Summoner to make sure that you're covering both champ types, or maybe just Forerunner if you want to trust your teammates and go double special. And that is already up there in the Massive Breakdowns Discord server build channel if you want to go check that out and be Suspend Central on the Titan. Impetus?
I'm actually just going to recommend Stasis for this one. I think our little turrets are going to steal the show here, especially with their both their crowd control capability and then also their Overload Champion counter, which is going to be quite nice here. So again, we've got Winter's Wrath Super. We're going to be using Cold Snaps grenades, Penumbral Blast melee, Healing Rift, and then the Osmiomancy Gloves exotic armor. You can also run Augur's Scepter as your exotic weapon of choice to really double down on applying slow and freeze to as many enemies as possible. Aspects, we're running Bleak Watcher and Glacial Harvest. Fragments, I'm running the 4 Whispers of Conduction. That means my stasis shards track to you. Whisper of Durance, your slow lasts longer. That's going to be really big for the turrets and for augurs if you want to run that. Whisper of Torment, you gain grenade energy whenever you take damage. We always love extra grenade energy. And then Whisper of Rhyme, where picking up shards grant an over shield. So that's going to be it. We're all on crowd control, and I'm probably going to recommend against even casting the super, use the charged up mode of Augur's Scepter to really lay into all of your champions, also the mini bosses and the wyverns once you get to the boss room to really deal some excellent damage while not being in your super animation in case an ally goes down and you got to quickly pivot to healing them or swapping to a different weapon to stun a champion if they're barreling down on you. That flexibility can be life-saving in the boss room in particular. So that's my one build that I'm going to really, really lean in on. If you don't have that kit, if you don't have a good Osmiomancy Gloves, if you don't have Augur's Scepter, you could fall back on the Strand subclass build that I've been recommending for a lot of the GMs where you're using Swarmers and Threadlings. That will also be quite strong. If you want to swap out that grenade for the Shackle grenade to lean into Suspend just to keep enemies off your back, you definitely could do that, but I think the Threadlings will be quite fine, especially with the Strand Surge, so that'll be nice for keeping some enemies off of your back if you need to pivot. For the mods here, I'm going to recommend on Stasis Grenade Kickstart and Impact Induction. Do Concussive Dampener and Void Resist for the chest. Legs, Recuperation, better already, and then on the class side here, Bomber is going to be the main recommendation there. Again, I think that's going to be probably one of the strongest builds that you can run in here on a Warlock. I think the turrets are going to take care of pretty much all the major threats here. They'll lock them down, make those tough enemies a lot easier to stun and or kill. All right, let's get into activity pain points. Good to know we've already covered this pretty multiple times before, so just the highlights here. We're thinking Strand and Stasis, aren't we? I think, Saint, you brought up some really good points about the potency of Solar. Having a Solar Surge is definitely going to take those Titans to the next level, but yeah. Suspend and Slow are going to dominate in the boss room. It's going to shut down the Overload champions as they rush you. It's going to shut down the Wyvern as the Wyverns as they rush you. You could go for all damage if you really feel comfortable about your fire team output, but I think if you're trying to go into this for the first time, if this is your first time covering the Glassway, it can be quite brutal. It's really the boss room is going to be, I think, a big struggle here. Some of those earlier rooms will probably set up the pace for what to expect with your champions and your mini bosses, but for the most part, I think boss room is probably going to be the biggest struggle. Are there any tips that you guys have for any of the earlier rooms, or do you think those are going to be pretty understandable for new players or first-time players for this GM?
I think they're pretty standard. Yeah, I think it's the fair assessment to say that they're a kind of setup. This is what to expect because the boss room just throws champions at you. But this is obviously the first time we've had this Grandmaster post Lightfall champion stunning kind of uplift. Before we didn't have stasis slow stunning overloads. Now we do. If say Impetus and I are in a fire team, I'm on stasis, he's on his stasis with the turrets. Those overloads should not be getting anywhere near you. To be honest, they're getting stunned, they're getting slowed, and all the other combatants are getting slowed and frozen. So, I think this is compared to last year and the year prior when we had these Grandmasters for Glassway, it's got a lot better. I think folks have still got this kind of, this is a really bad GM to do because it's very unfriendly. But with the post Lightfall changes, it's a net gain.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It's the kind of thing where you spend 15, 20 minutes going through the first half of the GM, and then you get to the boss room, and that's really the second half of the GM. Right, so it's however long it took you to get there, it's probably going to take that long to get through the whole boss room fight. And yeah, I definitely say on the note of using the solar subclass, I'm using solar if I know I have my teammates on crowd control. Right, if not, I'm going Strand Titan because you can just lock down the room. You get charged by wyverns and all this stuff, dude. Just throw out a barricade, they're just locked in place. I think having a lot of ability to deal with anti-barrier in that case would be really good. I think using something like Forerunner with Retrace Path and a Rocket as a Solar Titan is that's definitely the way if you have a 2 stasis teammates or, a stasis hunter and a stasis warlock, right? Or a strand hunter and a stasis warlock, then feel free to go pure offensive in this one. But yeah, otherwise it is true that the name of the game is crowd control and keeping those enemies in front of you while you just chunk your way through the boss room. But I think that's about it. Just remember, eventually when you start to go through this a few times, you'll remember the waves of each champion type. Okay, new waves coming in, clear out my ads, clear out my wyverns, clear out the champions, deal damage to the boss, just rinse and repeat, right? And kind of agreed that because of the way you can hunker down in the little foxhole room there, it's really not that bad compared to some other teams where you're just completely exposed out in the arena.
Yeah, taking it slow and methodical. And the communication as well. And yeah, to Saint's point about the spawns, if you keep doing these, if you keep doing Glassway, you do get to see, okay, you get to the threshold of the mini boss Hydra. Right, now we know we're getting ad spawn. If you miss the little message at the bottom left to say, champions have spawned, and you get in a nice routine. This is one Grandmaster that is that I do actually enjoy playing because you can really increase your skill level because of how to approach the spawning ads. You know when they spawn. Right, okay, let's get to this point. Let's get set up, get our strand shackle grenades and our stasis grenades up. The Warlock's stasis turrets up as well. And it can be a good time. It's just when you do too much damage or if you're not kind of communicating with your team, that's where, again, these Grandmasters, they just start snowballing. So what time are we kind of expecting to complete? I think first time clear, we've mentioned before, it's 45 minutes, which is a long time. It is quite a long time. But again, just taking it nice and slow. And repeat clears, 25 to 30 minutes, maybe even 20 minutes if you're, we've got a lot of our strand and stasis arsenal now. Probably, 20 minutes if you're really speed running it. The boss can be a bit of a pain. He is not susceptible to strand or stasis, and he can completely annihilate you because he's got that the void kind of AoE attack. So the ads are fine to take care of, but the boss is not. And first time and kind of repeat clears, boss room, definitely the sort of most taxing. But as we've mentioned before, it's not as difficult. It's not as worrisome compared to more newer or refreshed Grandmasters. It's kind of maybe even, at least compared to the other Grandmasters that we've got this season, it's not up there. It's kind of shares with Proving Grounds, where with it not being new, we know what to expect. It's quite lowered down in terms of the difficulty level or the scale. Heist Battlegrounds is probably still up there. Hypernet's brand new. Arms Dealer and Lake of Shadows, they're kind of refreshed. So we're still trying to get the best kind of vibe with those strikes. But yeah. Any final
Hypernet,
thoughts?
you have those Axion darts that are just like chasing you everywhere. Here, it's like, well, at least you can just kind of hide in the corner and wait, Yeah.
Hypernet's got the problem of the floor's not it's not very stable for wayframes, and for if you die, your ghost might fall into the ground, unable to to get rezzed.
Yeah, I don't know where I'd put Glassway at the top of the listing of these GMs. I think it's definitely in I'd say it's in the top 3. I think it's probably. Yeah, I would probably rank it higher than Proving Grounds at this point. I think Skyburners really just take the sting out of Proving Grounds, with at least the worst parts of the Proving Grounds. There isn't. I mean, you can absolutely use slow to really cheese the overloads, but those mini boss wyverns are still mini boss wyverns, and there's no weapon that can or ability that can really diminish that. So you do need to take those enemies carefully, and the boss can position itself in such a way that you're forced to kind of rotate around that right side room in such a way. So I think the positioning part can be frustrating, but it's by no means easier, but this is by far the easiest the Glassway has ever been as a GM when it's available. So get in there, go get your buzzards, join the sidearm squad. It comes for us all at some point. So tag us in your rolls, show us what you got. It's double drops. Go get that Kinetic Tremors juicer, or that Frenzy juicer, Overflow Frenzy juicer. I think that's all I've got to say. You guys got anything else to add about Glassway before we round it out?
Look forward to covering it next season when it comes back again.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Dude.
The marathon.
All right, that is all we have for episode 62. A big one this week with a lot of upcoming changes for the next season with our subclasses, focusing, weapons, crafting, all that stuff. It's been a big episode. Thanks for listening in. Good luck out there on your farms. We also want to thank our audio engineer, Autodidaktos, for helping us sound great every single episode. As always, my name is Saint Kabr. You can find me by that name on Twitter, Discord, and in-game. Impetus, where can our listeners find you?
My name is Impetus. You can find me by that name on Discord and in Destiny, as well as on Twitter for the remainder of that social media platform's lifespan. Court, where can we find you?
Well, Jasper wants to say goodbye to the podcast as well, because he's here making a racket. Yes, my name is Court. You can find me on Twitter as Court Projects, on Discord as Court. You can find my infographics and spreadsheet over on the Destiny Massive Breakdowns website and the Discord server, where you can also find other applications and spreadsheets to enhance your Destiny experience. All right, that's it for another week. We'll see you next time.